official Riot Games Squad EMEA Championship.
Everybody round, we know we get hype. Everybody round, everybody round.
Welcome back to the WREC Last Chance Qualifier. I'm Scoundrel, joined by Stu for our second series of the day. Gonna be a banger. Very interesting first series. I think what has benefited WREC so heavily is that the meta is very favored towards strong topsiders and then very good AD carries. So both Doom and Random are like shining like crazy right now, and so WREC's are really valuing that. And I think, you know, that applies to every other team as well. I think that the 3.1 has brought the changes of Baron Lane is a big impact again, and AD carries are actually viable, which I know you're really happy about, Stu. So I think applying that to the next series, what do you think is, you know, who do you think comes in with kind of like the favored side of that when we're talking about the way that 3.1 has adapted things?
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me. I think looking down the duo lane matchup, we have Kranix, who is also one of the best AD carries, I think, in the tournament. But then on the other side, on the side of Formulation, you know, we have the likes of Fekko and these interesting picks that Formulation like to pick up. And I think when it comes to adapting to the meta, I think Formulation like to do all these little pocket picks and try out something new. So I'm excited to see that, but I'm also excited to see ViV as well, because coming into WREC, they were the dark horses, and they proved in the WREC main event that they were the dark horses. So they're going to try and win now and try and book their tickets to Barcelona.
Yeah, and I think Formulation Gaming as well, we shouldn't like understate them. They had a really good run in the WREC too. They knocked out Queso, right? And they were favorites. So I think it's going to be a really, really, really interesting matchup between these two. Let's go over though to Hells. Hells is standing by to have his thoughts on this series and where he believes the key points of the game are going to be.
Yeah, thank you very much, Xcando. And the first thing that I want to talk about, yet again, the traditional ADCs. This is such a big thing, especially for these teams. And if we look at ViV Esports, Kranix, right? Like, we know Kranix is super good at these ADCs. I've seen him spam Jinx, by the way, so that may indicate that he's also going to be picking the Jinx. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is on the opposite side, Formulation Gaming. They have some crazy picks. We've seen it, right? Fekko on the Seraphine. We saw the Irelia. Like, they come through with the craziest picks and make it work. Like, they've made it work. They've come up until this point, and that's going to be their factor to win this game against ViV Esports. Because in my opinion, we've seen ViV Esports with superior macro game. ViV Esports game has been amazing macro-wise, and I believe they even contest a team like WREC's macro-wise. I'm only saying macro-wise, and that's what truly makes them a super strong team, really, especially Tyrus in that jungle as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how Formulation Gaming is going to deal with that crazy strong macro game from ViV Esports. So enough talking, let's actually get into the game. Back to Xcando and Stuart to get us into the draft.
Thank you so much, Hells. I think, you know, it's going to be interesting. I do believe Kranix is a real key factor for ViV coming into this. But also, one of the things that I've really always liked about ViV is they've been very intelligent about the way they play the game. I think they've got a really good set of coaching staff behind them. I know that Ryu, as the sub right now, also has a lot of input and thoughts into how these drafts go down. He's very, very sort of, I guess, game smart, in my opinion. So I think this is going to be a very interesting one. Sharks has really impressed me too. And I think that's another thing to look towards. The only thing that I think, you know, I'd raise is that Miloop hasn't been the most standout Baron laner ever, Stuart. And I think versus UI, there may be a mismatch that they could look to exploit.
Yeah, I think UI has definitely looked really strong, and it's going to be a very interesting matchup in that Baron lane because, as you mentioned already, you know, we're seeing a lot more of these carries up in the Baron lane now with Divine Sundra, the likes of Camille, Fiora, even we've seen Graves up there as well, so it'd be really interesting. But I think another one, like you said, you know, Sharks in the mid lane, especially on Gragas, his strongest champion's been really good. And then we have Don on the other side with his Irelia, you know, with the recent buffs to Irelia, with the changes as well, a little bit to Irelia. We might be seeing like a mid lane matchup with two pocket picks or two comfort picks for these two carries, which is going to be really fun to see.
Yeah, Irelia is something that doesn't usually get hovered out in competitive play too much, but she has had those changes that have made her scaling in the late game really strong. And so I think we've got to keep our eyes on that. Plus Divine Sunderer, even though it doesn't have the attack speed, which Irelia does like, it's still a really good item because it gives her a little bit more survivability and some inbuilt sustain. And you can always just pair it up with Blade of the Ruined King to have like a really strong 1-2 item combo on the Irelia. So it is something that Irelia is in a good spot, right now, and especially for Don, who is an Irelia aficionado, we'll say. He's an Irelia specialist, and so there are some matchups that he'll obviously look to pick that into. Whoa, we've
whoa,
I thought we got like a spicy new pick and ban overlay. I thought we had something crazy going on there, but yeah, we're heading into picks and bans, by the way, guys. We are getting towards that stage of the competition. Of course, this is another important series because the winner, Stu, goes to Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, REC have now booked their tickets to Barcelona, whether it be through that play-in match or whether it be in the group stage. We'll see after they play the winner of this game to see who gets to that group stage or the main event in Barcelona. But yeah, I think the main purpose of these games is booking your tickets to Barcelona, which for these two teams, I think would be quite good. I think Formulation coming into the WREC in general was like, they weren't really a team that we really thought about as like a dark horse or something. But like you said, in the WREC, they knocked out Team Queso. They did really well. They got into the top 4 and ViV as well. So for any of these two teams getting that far into the tournament is going to be a big achievement.
Absolutely, but you can see the Irelia has been banned, so Don will not be getting his hands on the Irelia in this series. It'll be Corki banned as well with Gragas, and there is a lot left open here. We've got things like the Shen, which is banned a couple of times. We've got the Fiora, which is open, although I will say, not sure who the Fiora player would be on ViV. Tyres has not shown a huge kind of liking for that particular champion. It'll be the Ziggs that gets prioed here, with the Fiora immediately being picked up by Formulation Gaming.
Yeah, Ziggs priority. It seems that ViV don't want to go down the traditional AD carry route. Even, it might be mid lane Ziggs, it might be Sharks on the Ziggs, but we haven't really seen him play Ziggs too much. And most of the time when we see Ziggs, it's most likely in the duo lane. But yeah, Fiora just picked up straight away. I think Fiora is still a really strong pick. Can still be played in the jungle, can still be played in Baron lane, and Zala on Rakan as well. Honestly, I think Formulation got two insanely strong power picks, whereas Ziggs, I'm not really too sure about Ziggs. I still feel like that he's really strong, and I think he can do really well. But I'm not too sure on this first pick priority, but we'll have to see what else ViV pick up on top of it. It's going to be Wukong. Now, we did see Wukong last week, played by Kamaris. Up in the Baron lane, we saw Divine Sundra, Black Cleaver. I think this build is really good on Wukong, especially because of his healing on his first ability as well. He can get into team fights, he can ultimate, he can heal up a lot as well. It's going to be interesting. It seems like a sort of a Tyrus pick as well, because Tyrus likes to play these tanky junglers.
Yeah, I think it's the Tyrus pick for certain, and they're going to pair it up with the Galio. So it's a really nice little 1-2 combo, the Wukong Galio. And I think works nicely too. I wonder if that's going to be Galio in the mid lane, given that support Galio was recently nerfed a pretty decent amount. This is very ViV draft, though. They don't tend to follow the grain of the accepted meta. Tyrus is the kind of a jungler that will be picking the Vi more often than not where he can. So, there's a lot of difference to the ViV drafts, but they work because they have solid fundamentals. That'll be set, though, locked in, and you're just looking at power pick after power pick here for Formulation Gaming, building a star-studded roster of the strongest champions in Wild Rift right now, and they're very happy to do so. Second ban phase comes through. If you were trying to limit from ViV, I wonder what you're looking to take away, like maybe something like the Morgana on top of everything else?
Yeah, potentially. I'm trying to think what else. Maybe some more bruisers as well. Akali is another one. I think we've seen Millet play Akali a few times, but I think, ViV have the Ziggs, they have the Galio, they have the Wukong that potentially go into like Baron mid or jungle. So you're probably looking at solo lanes being banned out for Formulation. But on the side of ViV, they're probably going to look to try and target towards that duo lane, maybe target out some AD carries, maybe some mages. Like you said, that Morgana is still open. But I think Formulation have a really first strong free picks. Two really strong bruisers paired up with the Rakan support as well. And they have a lot of lockdown. If you can Rakan ultimate into set suplex as well on top of that, especially with like Galio potentially building tank, Wukong also building a little bit tanky, it could be a really strong pick. We're waiting for the ban of ViV. They're kind of taking a bit of a long time for the ban. Maybe not really. I mean, it's kind of hard really to ban, I feel like, for ViV at the moment, because you're not really too sure whether Fekko is going to go towards the traditional AD carries, because as we've mentioned before, Fekko's come out with these crazy picks before that we haven't really seen before. We've seen him play Galio duo lane, Seraphine, all of these crazy picks. So we'll have to see. Hopefully we'll get the ban fairly shortly.
Yeah, I think there might just be a delay here rather than rather than Viv not actually choosing to ban anything or being given unlimited time to ban a champion, I think we just have a delay. So we'll have to check and see what's going on that front. If I were them, I'd maybe thinking about limiting like the Xayah, for instance. Xayah would be like something that's very easily able to get out of this Wukong knockup and this Galio. So Xayah would be like a pretty good ban alongside the Rakan. Not sure what else would really fit into that. Maybe like a Morgana to stop, give a Black Shield over to the set, or the Fiora, for instance. So those seem like relatively decent bans if Viv don't want to pick that up themselves.
Yeah, I think Morgana would be definitely a good one, because the Black Shield, I think, will be really good for the likes of Galio, for the likes of Wukong as well, stopping all that crowd control that might be coming out. I'm interested to see, because it's going to be an interesting one. The Akali ban as well. I mean, the Akali ban is obviously focused towards the solo lanes. Probably another ban as well for a solo lane for the side of formulation. We'll have to wait and see.
I think we've just here we go. I think we're going to get things reset, and hopefully we'll get those picks and bans back up, and we may even get to see the rounded out team comps at this point, because it was a little while we were waiting for that second ban in the second ban phase there. I think we
might be going in with a surprise.
Yeah, maybe we're just going to go into game and it'll be surprised. Do you know what? I almost prefer that option. Just go into game.
That'll be fun.
It's like this like, who knows what they picked? We'll just find out. Who knows what they banned either? It doesn't matter.
Tune in next episode.
Yeah, on the next episode of WRECZ. Anyway, we are into the bin. Oh,
what's a Morgana?
So it was a Morgana.
Okay.
Never mind. Well, it was a Morgana. That was a good calling, Scoundrel.
We at least got that confirmed.
Good job, you. Good job, kid. I'm just going to pat myself on the head because that was a good call.
Yeah, it was the Morgana ban, but yeah, I think other AP majors are going to probably be banned out for Viv, because you already have the set and the Fiora for kind of your AD damage, unless you go for like maybe a Diana or something like that instead as sort of an AP damage source. Because we saw from the last series, Team Queso against RIX, that RIX was completely dominant in that series, but when you draft these full AD comps on the side of Team Queso, especially with Death Stance being such a strong item on bruisers, and you could just go for items like Guardian Angel, armor boots as well, it's really hard, especially when it gets to the mid and late game, when you have these armor items that can come online to kind of break through the team. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get through the rest of this pick and bans. It looks like it was a bit of delay, and we're just going to go through all the bans and picks again.
Yeah, I think we're just everything will stay the same up until the point of that first ban, which I imagine will be the Morgana, and then we'll just follow on from where we are. So they should just kind of cycle through the bans, cycle through the picks, and we'll get back to where we were in the draft phase. Had a little bit of an issue. We sometimes get problems with pick and ban phase. You get crashes here and there, so it is what it is. Based on the draft so far, though, I'm kind of favoring formulation, just because they have like a lot of strong power picks in the current meta. They're building out, a potential win conditions through the Fiora. They're building out potential win conditions through just team fighting with the set. Whereas Viv are a little bit older, a little bit behind in terms of what they're picking. However, they are building a good fundamental with like the Wukong, the Galio. Like Wukong plus Galio is good fundamentals for Viv, of course. So that's like a strong team fight combo like the Camille Galio, and you'd expect to see it.
Yeah, it's really interesting priority by Viv, to be fair. First the Ziggs and then the Wukong and the Galio. We saw that Galio didn't really get prioritized in the last series at all. Same with Ziggs, same with Wukong. So it's like three completely different picks that we didn't see at all in the first series. So interesting priority. So it looks like we are up to date now. The Morgana being banned away, and it's going to be Ari being banned away, another mid laner taken away from the Sharks. So, with the Gragas being banned away, Akali, Ari as well, Morgana and Orianna, you could basically say a mid lane picks. It could potentially be, Viv just say, okay, we're just going to move the Galio to the mid lane and pick another support instead, because it's going to be really down the list. It's actually Xin Zhao as well, another AD bruiser that benefits a lot, with the busts to 3.1 and also the Divine Sunderer coming into the game. Just really big, strong frontline bruisers for formulation at the moment. And
also, like, Xin Zhao is a great Divine Sunderer pick as well. This is a very interesting comp from Viv, by the way. We'll dive into this in a minute. It looks like it's going to be Galio, Ziggs bot lane. It'll be probably Jace mid. And is that going to be like Wukong top, Tyra's Jack's jungle? Because I think Jack's Baron lane is awful, by the way. So I think think that would be the case for ViV. That is a great last pick, though, from Formulation. We know that they are big Seraphine enjoyers. We know that they love that champion. And also it sets up really nicely for the strong teamfight presence that you're going to have with the Set and the Xin Zhao. This is scary. I actually genuinely think that the teamfight is looking very, very, very good from Formulation. And I think ViV are going to have to be a little careful here. However, ViV also have really strong teamfighting presence. You know what's really funny? I'm looking at the splash arts and just look how different Jace's art style looks to pretty much every other champion. It's just so striking how he's very soft edges and everybody else is like really hard lines. And anyway, just a small thing.
Maybe a bit out of date.
Just after the 50-minute champion select, my brain has gone into total meltdown mode. But yes, this is obviously the FICO special, as Hell puts it. The Seraphine that not many other teams like to play. Game Lord used to do it last year all the time, but it hasn't really seen much play outside of Formulation across the WREC.
Yep, Seraphine, I think it's going to be really, really good. I think Xin Zhao is also a great pick because when the likes of, Wukong's going to be diving in, Galio, Jace, Jax, all of these champions are going to be diving in. Xin Zhao just uses ultimate, knocks them all back away, which allows Seraphine to then ulti on top of the Xin Zhao as well. So I think Seraphine Rakan is also a great combo because when you engage with Rakan, with the charm, you just Seraphine ultimate on top of that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised really to see Feko on Seraphine. I mean, I think as everyone's already mentioned, Formulation like these very unique picks and very different picks, and that's no different coming into this game as well. But I definitely favor Formulation's draft coming into this first game. I
think I favor Formulation's draft as well. I think they have got plenty of ways to counter these big team fights. As you mentioned, you've got the well-timed Xin Zhao ultimate, you've got the Seraphine ultimate. There are plenty of good options that you have to kind of dismantle what ViV are trying to do in these team fight situations. ViV, if they can make it work, you have got a strong team fight here, but it's about making it work. And Formulation have shown they've got a lot of aptitude with the picks like Seraphine.
Yeah, so we're going to be seeing what I think the scaling in terms of ViV is definitely a lot stronger with Jax and Ziggs. To be honest, I think they not really. I mean, the scaling on the side of Formulation is not too bad as well. I'd like to get your opinion on that, Excalibur. I think ViV overall have the better scaling comp overall, but I think in terms of team fight, it's a difficult one because both these teams I think want to fight. I think there's no doubting that at all. Interesting enough, it's Don actually on Fiora mid lane. If I remember correctly, he actually played Fiora mid lane before. I think it was actually last week. So instead of the Irelia is the Fiora mid against Sharks is Jason. It is going to be Millip on the Wukong in the Baron lane. Does have Gasping Undying as well. Probably going to go for the Divine Sundra, go for this more tanky build. And like I said, I honestly think this is a really strong pick at the moment. It's not very popular, but I think just the amount of healing and the amount of sustain that you can get in the lane phase and during the team fights as well can definitely come in handy.
You can see Tyra's just supporting the mid lane because Sharks right now struggling versus Don. Kemal trying to get a little bit of prio, and you can see they flash in immediately, go for the stun, but it won't quite work. But it's enough prio to allow them to go and take this River Scuttler, and of course, burning anything for River Scuttler is 100%.
Wow. 59% to 41%. I think that just shows how close the series is going to be. I don't think we're going to be seeing a complete stomp, even though Hell thinks it might be a complete stomp. I personally don't think it's going to be a complete stomp. I think Formulation is still a great team. And Don there just using the riposte in the mid lane just to deny the taunt. But that's flashed down already for Floor, so that means he's going to have to play a little bit safer. And you can see that the roam's already by the supports. First it was Floor in the mid lane. Now it's Zara in the mid lane as well. Both these supports want to try and rotate around the map, try and use their early game crowd control that they can offer to try and get these bruisers ahead. As we're definitely seeing a lot more bruisers in the meta. Even though it's a new patch, with some huge changes to some champions. I think with Divine Thunder and the likes of Hullbreaker and bruisers in general just being really, really strong, it's kind of no surprise really to see 6 bruisers on either side.
I mean, as well as the fact that bruisers were kind of the meta before 3.1, they're now obviously even better now that Divine Thunder has come out. Yeah. And so many different champions can use Divine Thunder because it doesn't it sort of doesn't tie you heavily to some of the more specific stats of Trinity Force. Rather, you've got the option of just having some flat health and an empowered basic attack, and plus ability haste, which everybody loves. So it's like a really, really nice item that has a lot of universally applicable stats, which is really good.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We get to see the double AP duo lane as well, even though, you know, last game we went from Doom playing traditional AD carries to now both ViV and Formulation kind of falling back onto these AP majors. So I definitely feel like RICS is definitely, I mean, we spoke about it already, but RICS are definitely got ahead of the game in the meta, and maybe Formulation and ViV are just going back to what they're used to and what they're used to practicing on, because to be fair, the patch has only been out now, I think for what, a week now? A week today, I think it is. Was it week today or week yesterday? I can't remember exactly, but a week is not a long time to practice new things, especially with tournaments in between and WREC in between as well. So nothing too crazy this game. I think Wukong top is the only real different pick, and obviously the Xin Zhao as well. But other than that, it's kind of the same picks that we saw before. But now with the objectives coming up, the Cloud Dragon is going to be the first objective. Floor's caught. He doesn't have. Oh, he does have flashback up. I thought he didn't have flashback up, but it's going to be Floor's flash down again now for this team fight. It looks like Formulation are going to try and look towards this Cloud Dragon.
And think they'll be able to pick it up with relative ease. They've got all of their ultimates available. And of course, wrong side of the map for most of ViV. ViV will be settling up on that Rift Herald. I think realistically, they'll be happy to take the Rift Herald here. I think most people now, with the small nerfs that happened to Dragon on patch 3.1, believe that Rift Herald in general holds a little bit more value unless you're kind of having to face down an Infernal Dragon, for instance. You can see Redemption comes out. Sharks will be backed up by Floor for the time being. Floor trying to buy some time, has a stun at a tower, will get the taunt off as well, but there's the flash from Kimao, and it'll be a double kill for Don. They're trying to buy a bit of space. Tyrus gets taken out.
Oh,
this
no.
is a disaster for ViV. They are getting smashed every stage across the map, and Formulation Gaming are in such a strong spot now.
Feko tried to flash. Oh, actually, Cunnick's got a kill in the duo lane. So there is one kill back. But yeah, like I said, absolutely disastrous for ViV. They weren't able to take the Baron lane tower with the Rift Herald. I must say, though, the duo lane tower dive from Formulation was perfect. It was so good. They used Kamal's engage to kind of tank the tower at first, and then he flashed away, and it was Zhao after that as well. We're going to see the tower dive again. The Redemption does help out, but it's Zhao that goes in first. He tanks the tower for a little bit, but then Kamal just tanks the tower for so long. He flashes away in the last second. Zhao as well was able to get there, but you can see this top lane tower dive just went so wrong for ViV. They tried to jump in, but Feko was there for backup. The Rift Herald doesn't come to any use at all. And now Formulation, they're going to be seeing, Kranix. Zhao was on the road the whole time. I'm actually quite surprised how much damage Kranix did with that one bomb. I think the passive
it must have been Ludens. It must have been a Ludens that he procced as well with it. So end of the day, the Ludens proc on an individual target is quite high. And so he probably just did a huge chunk of damage on an isolated target there. However, ViV struggling just a little bit right now, and also I really don't like the fact that Kranix is sat on an AP carry. I know Ziggs is really impactful, but you mentioned him being one of the strongest AD carries in Europe, and he's just stuck on this like wave clearing mage duty for the majority of the game here. A lot of like what I'm seeing from this Wukong right now, the Divine Sunder at Wukong, you get a huge amount of healing from both your first ability, but also because your first ability applies on hit effects. You get a load of healing from Divine Sunderer as well with that one item. It's a really nice pickup for Wukong, especially when you get into duels versus other champions.
Yeah, 100%. He's going to be useful during team fights as well, because Wukong's still that same champion that does really well. And they did like the change with him quite a while ago as well, where he gets like healing, extra healing from if he hits minions as well, so he can also sustain in lane if you're taking a lot of damage as well. So I think overall it's such a great item for Wukong, and I think it just fits him so well. And then he's just going to be going into Black Cleaver as well. I think mostly everyone's going to be going for the same build. You can see that I think Set Wukong and Xin Zhao we're going to be seeing having Divine Sunderer and Black Cleaver, which two of probably the strongest items in the entire game at the moment, which just leaves these duo lane carries, like you said, on these AP champions, which I don't really like to see, but it seems to be a fight in the duo lane. Not too sure what's happening down there.
Sharks taking a huge amount of damage. The Grand Challenge came out, but no vitals actually got procced there. I think he had to flash away from that situation. Milub is going to face check into the set, forced to flash away, doesn't have his ultimate for the time being, gets slammed under tower, and Kimao will pick up the kill with relative ease.
Rotations at the moment from Formulation are coming up completely clutch. A little bit unfortunate that Miller probably didn't realize the whole of Formulation was the set and the Xin Zhao was going to be in the bush there. But now they're going to try and look to take that Baron lane tower. Kimao is going to back off instead, and Tyrus is here to defend the tower. So no towers have gone down just yet. It's only just the Dragon and the Rift Herald that's gone down. This is a very, very slow game, I feel like, to what we used to see. We've only really had them, you know, 2 team fights, one in the dual lane, one in the Baron lane, then tower dies. But other than that, there's not really been anything else too much happening. But now with the new objectives spawning, the second Rift Herald, and now the Mountain Dragon, we're probably going to see more fights. And here we go.
Yeah, we see the Galio ultimate coming out for the time being. They're trying to get onto this Rift Herald, and milup goes straight in by himself. That was the main problem right there. Has the second charge of his ultimate. There comes the taunt. We need to follow up. It's a really big ultimate coming out from the Ziggs, but it doesn't get a lot of work done. And they manage to get the Rift Herald, but they'll lose 3 members for it. I'm interested to see if Locket was picked up by Formulation, because I really feel that Mega Inferno Bomb did not have the impact that we maybe expected it to have once it was really well placed on that team fight.
Yeah, it looks like it did negative damage. So yeah, I think there must have been a Locket or something that would have stopped the damage. I think it's just the tankiness from the, you know, team Formulation. You know, when you have the Don, Kamau, and UI all building Divine Sundra, the just amount of health that you get from it. And Kranix is not at that point in the game yet where he's going to be doing a lot of damage. And no, there isn't a Locket. Interesting enough. Maybe it was I'm not too sure if I saw the Redemption or not come down. We're going to be seeing it back here. Oh, Redemption did come down, but it was before then. But yeah, milup going in completely sorry. Floor did really, really well with the ultimate. But you can see the Ziggs damage is just not there yet, unfortunately. The Luna's Echo not doing enough against these beefy tanks on the side of Formulation. And I think that's what Divine Sundra does as well. It not only gives you a lot of tankiness, but it also gives you a lot of damage as well, and also the on-hit effects, which allows you to heal up over time. ViV are going to try and look this Rift Herald to try and use this Rift Herald, to try and get the mid lane tower. But again, ViV use another Rift Herald. It doesn't even get charged. It doesn't even get a tower or anything from it. I feel like twice now ViV have kind of wasted this Rift Herald. But milup, whilst mid lane was being taken down, trying to be taken down, milup was able to take the first tower of the game up in the Baron lane.
And that is at least a bit of gold back in the pockets of ViV right now as well, because they desperately need it. The Formulation Gaming are battering them in every single team fight right now. And I think ViV have to think about how they're looking to win this game. Sharks taking down very low. Tyra's coming in with the counter-attack. We have the quickness already popped out as we're going to get the taunt coming in from Zawa, but we just don't have the damage. But it is finally there as Sharks can convert, and it'll be a nice little kill. As you can see, that milup is desperately trying to stop this tower from going down. Can't make it happen, but will start chunking them down. He's got a lot of damage coming out, forced to flush away, but he will eventually drop. It'll be a rampage for Kimau on the Xin Zhao.
milup's really struggling in his Baron lane at the moment. I don't think he's able to really do that much, especially because you got Kamau just sitting up here with UI just completely dominating milup. I think milup's like 0-3 now or something like that. So the Wukong pick not really doing too much at the moment. And to be honest, ViV have not really gotten into that team fight situation that they want to be in. And you can see that Kranix is still going to be a long, long time, I think, until Kranix comes online. If Formulation just keep up the momentum, you can see milup here, unfortunately. Even in a 2 versus 1 situation, you can see all the healing and all the damage that milup can do, even in a 2 versus 1 situation. But yeah, you're not getting out of there. He tried to defend the tower as much as he could, but unfortunately wasn't able to. And now Formulation, they're going to look to try and accelerate this gold lead. They know they're ahead right now, so they're going to look to try and get this bot lane tower.
Yeah, they're trying to push it down. They are desperately forcing onto that bot lane tier 1, but the Mega Inferno Bomb will do enough to clear the wave out for the time being. You can see now Tyra's just attempting to threaten that mid lane tier 1. And that's what the Jax can do, obviously. Jax is able to just get onto a tower and take it with ease. And one of the things that ViV has done well here has picked up towers. They've still got that bot lane tier 1, that top lane tier 1 down already. milup doing a lot of damage now on this Wukong. Got to be a little careful here if you're Dom.
Yeah, I think he's got the Black Cleaver completed now on top of the Divine Sundra, the combo that I was talking about. I think going back into Champion Select and take a look at the picks in general, I think like Xin Zhao was like a perfect pick here for Formulation. You can see how he's doing absolute wonders at the moment against ViV, because ViV, all they want to do is engage. They want to jump in. You know, Wukong wants to jump in, Jax wants to jump in, the same with Galio as well. And you saw in that dual lane fight that just happened, Xin Zhao was just able to use his ultimate and zone the rest of ViV away, which means that Fekko can then use that as kind of a counter engage situation to try and use the ultimate, or even UI and Don can use it after that. So I think Formulation, when it comes to team fights, I think if they just wait until ViV try to engage and then try and counter engage after that and use Kimau as sort of a wall, I guess you can say, between ViV and Feko, that he's just able to dish out a lot of damage on the Seraphine.
And I'm a little bit worried that ViV's win condition comes down to team fighting well, right? Like the whole point of this ViV team comp, apart from maybe having Tyras in a side lane, is that ability to team fight effectively with the combination between the Galio and the Wukong. But it's just not working out for them. They're not making it happen. And as you mentioned with the Seraphine, there is an angle where they could potentially kind of outplay ViV in these team fight situations. Right here they do. It is a huge engage. Wukong can't even get into the fight. Tyrus is just straight up dead. And you can see that Milup is next on the target list. Fiko with the flash engage coming out. Absolutely steamrollered ViV right now, and Formulation Gaming look on top of the world. Kranix desperately clearing out waves, but Infernal Drake is going to go firmly in the favor of Formulation.
I mean, Milup tried to jump in. He was completely split up there for ViV. I think it was Galio and Wukong that was on the bottom side of the river. But then the rest of Formulation were just like, okay, Zhao was like, I'm going in. Zhao's ultimate, the charm, on top of Feko's ultimate as well, just completely destroyed Tyrus and Sharks, and they weren't able to do anything. And I'm not too sure why ViV are splitting up like they are at the moment. There's just no need to be split up like that, because even though I just mentioned that Formulation do really well with disengage, but they also do really well when they engage, when Zhao is able to flash charm, when Feko is able to follow that up with the Seraphine ultimate. We've seen this combination before being played by Game Lord before. We've seen it by Formulation and other teams as well. And wow, this is a, in the eyes of Hells, this would be called an upset.
No, I think realistically, no one expected ViV to sort of struggle this much. But Formulation Gaming have absolutely adapted super well, and I think the Seraphine's ban-worthy versus this team. I think Fiko clearly knows how to play it. One of the things that you need to realize about Seraphine is, even though she's niche, even though she isn't as strong as she maybe used to be last year, she still has insane impact in competitive if you can make it happen. That is the engage coming through. They're going to get a double lockdown. Nowhere for the Galio to move. And now they are pushing themselves onto this tier 1 turret in the mid. You can see the Milup now the target. Oh, he gets stunned up again. Fiko with another little root. And that is going to be a huge wipe here for Formulation Gaming. They're going to take Kranix down too. And ViV are getting slaughtered by Formulation.
This is very, very surprising. I was not expecting it. If you told me coming into this series that Formulation would absolutely dominate ViV and ViV would only get 2 kills, I wouldn't have believed you at all. And I think they're going to just try and end the game. They are. That's it.
That's the game end.
Wow.
That's just done. The Golden Nexus was still active. Like that was such a quick game from Formulation. They found one little moment and just pushed straight down mid. Didn't even need the use of the Ref Herald either. And Formulation Gaming dominate ViV. I almost have to go to Hells in the second game and say, Hells, have you thought about a different angle here? Are you thinking about changing your mind? Because that looked really strong from Formulation. I've got to give credit to the Hells though. I think, you know, we all predicted ViV for a reason. We all thought ViV were the better team, but Formulation have absolutely showed up everybody at this point. They looked super strong in that first game.
I mean, as we mentioned before the series as well, you know, Formulation took down Team Queso, and Team Queso is not an easy team to beat, but it kind of went a little bit wrong really for ViV just from the start of the game, really. They tried to kind of split the map in a way. They tried to tower dive. They tried to get a few kills across the map, even though it was a bit of a slower game than the first one. But I think Milup just really, really struggled on this Wukong pick. I still think Wukong is a great champion, but when Kamau is always top lane with UI as well, and sometimes engaging a little bit too early. But I don't know. I think going back to the draft, I think the priority from ViV was a little bit interesting. You know, they prioritized the Galio, they prioritized the Ziggs, and also the Wukong. Whereas Formulation, they were like, okay, we're just going to take Fiora and Rakan, we're then going to take Zed, and then we're going to pair that with a Xin Zhao to completely stop any engage that you can think of doing. And then the Seraphine as well, which, as you saw in all these team fights, Seraphine was just untouched. She was just able to use all of her abilities, use her charm as well. And this was the engage here. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Rakan charm into the Seraphine ultimate, and ViV were just completely split. This is not the ViV that we were expected to see coming into the series.
No, I think they as we mentioned, they didn't seem like they were drafting something that was particularly meta relevant, apart from maybe the Wukong top, which is something that's a bit of an emerging pick. But like Jax jungle, Jace mid, Ziggs AD, Ziggs in the Dragon lane, that's all stuff that is very old patch and stuff that was working on the previous WREC games. Things have changed with 3.1 and people have adapted how to play. Things like the Fiora mid, you're seeing like the Xin Zhao in the jungle with the Divine Sunderer, of course. And I think Fico is just a Seraphine specialist, so super happy for him to get his hands on that. But you can see the whole of Formulations didn't struggle here. The addition of the Rakan as well provided so many great engage opportunities for Zawa. Formulation look very strong, very, very strong. And I think ViV are going to have to completely recoup heading into this next game.
Well, Viv's 2 only kills were on Zawa, so I think we're going to have to report Zawa after this game. He was the only one that died twice on the side of Formulation. But yeah, I mean, they got the Divine Sunderers, they got the Black Cleavers, Death Stance as well was being built by all these bruisers. And when you have all these items, champions like Jace are not really going to do that much. The same with Wukong as well. You can see the early game was a little bit back and forth. Viv had a little bit of a gold lead at one point, but it just steadied out. And then that sudden burst right at the end, it was just like Formulation just won one team fight. They were like, okay, we have a minion wave, we're just gonna end the game. I was very, very surprised that they were able to just push mid that quickly and just end the game just like that in an instant.
Yeah, they found their moment and they just dived on it, like absolutely took control. And I think that's a sign of a great team, like a sign of a team that knows their limits and knows when they can make that kind of play. And it secured them their first win in the series. Let's take a look at the play of the game though and see what the highlight moment was from our first game between ViV and Formulation.
I think it's going to be probably the Rakan engage. Yeah, this is the team fight I thought it'd be. You can see Milip tries to go for the engage, but the Rakan Seraphine combo, we've seen it before, and it's come up clutch again. But again, as I mentioned during the game, ViV were very, very split. And it's just the decisive decision-making by Formulation, where Zhao was just like, okay, I'm going in, follow it up. Like, follow up with the Seraphine ulti, follow up with the engage from Xin Zhao after that. And you can see when Formulation are on the front edge, when they're like, okay, we want to engage, you can see that their combos and everything else as a team as well are able to come out on top.
Yeah, they looked fantastic. They really, really did. And of course, we've got more games in this series. Can ViV bounce back and get themselves back in the driving seat and book a place in Barcelona? Like Formulation Gaming are 1 game away from Barcelona right now, which would be a huge win for this team as well. We're going to go to a short break. When we're back, we're going to be diving into the second game of the series.
Well then.
we ready?
Welcome back to the WREC Last Chance qualifiers, and we have got another game coming your way between ViV and Formulation Gaming. Formulation played with absolute authority in their last game, and they are just one game away from booking a place in Barcelona, where ViV would unfortunately have to go through the long, hard route of the losers bracket to confirm their spot as well. Stu, very, very exciting stuff, but Formulation surpassed expectations, especially given the way we saw them play in the WREC. We really thought that ViV were going to be the number one dogs coming into this fight, right?
100%. I think it just shows that we all predicted ViV to win. I think most of the audience as well also predicted ViV to win. So it's just really surprising. But that's the great thing as well, is like coming into a new patch, coming into this this tournament, is that the teams are so closely balanced together. So it's really exciting to see teams like Formulation kind of come up from where we wouldn't really put them up there, but now they're one game away from Barcelona, as you said. That should blows my mind, really. That's absolutely incredible.
What I think that is really good about Formulation, I think what really benefits them in the current meta, is that they have lots of Divine Sunderer players. Like, they've got like people who really love the Xin Zhaos. They've got people who love the Fioras. They've got the the Irelia players. Like, the Divine Sunderer meta is the Formulation Gaming meta. Like, we talked about the AD carry meta suiting people like Doom, but we have to talk about the fact that obviously Divine Sunderer is such an influential item right now as well. So that's a really, really interesting thing I think about Formulation. But of course, Hells was standing on the sideline, and we're going to talk to him about his expectations coming into Game 2.
Thank you very much, Excando. Yeah, that's right. Formulation Gaming had very good early game pressure in that game, right? Like, they picked that Xin Zhao, which is a great counter to the composition of ViV Esports. They abused the early game that Xin Zhao has, and they abused the fact that ViV Esports had Ziggs, who's very weak in the early game. And we saw, right, the very underwhelming damage during the team fights. I want to talk about how ViV Esports played against it, though. I would say they had a decent compromise, right? Like, they did quite a good job dealing with it. They were taking Rift Heralds and squeezing in as much gold and experience and turrets with that bad early game composition they had, right? Like, they got killed many times in the early game, but they were actually able to get turrets, and they weren't behind that much, right? But at the next point, Vecco's Seraphine. Oh my god, don't let this man play Seraphine. Just whatever happens, just don't give him Seraphine, right? Like, if you don't ban away Seraphine, you have to be ready to deal with it. And ViV Esports was absolutely not ready to deal with it. So this is why we talked about the crazy picks from Formulation Gaming. That's why I gave it as a key point in the beginning. It may seem like a weird key point, but for Formulation Gaming, coming through with the Irelias, with the Seraphines, we even saw the Irelia get banned. What else are you supposed to ban against the composition or against a team like Formulation Gaming? Well, we're about to find out. So let's shoot it back to Excando and Stuart to check out what's gonna happen.
I think Seraphine could be a ban. Could be. I mean, I think if you're not willing to have like a good assassination threat for like the Seraphine, or have a good way of accessing the backline, especially with these heavy melee sort of bruisery type comps that we see from Formulation Gaming, then I think it could be a ban. Could feature for sure. Stu, for you, like, what is the most important part for this next draft? Like, what are you hoping to see? What are you expecting to see?
It's interesting to see what side priority, oh god, I can't even get my words out, side priority that ViV take. You know, will they stay on the blue side, will they go onto the red side? But I think pick priority is so important here for ViV. I think in the first game they didn't really go for anything. It felt like they were just on a previous patch. They weren't really on 3.1. They focused on the Ziggs, they focused on Galio. Wukong is a little bit new, but like the Ziggs and the Galio I didn't really like too much, so I want to see that completely changed. I want to see them pick up the strong bruisers like the Fiora, like the Set, and pick up these new picks as well, and get Kranix on an AD carry. I think that's what I want to see from ViV. But we'd be interested to see if they stay on the blue side or if they go over to the red side now. But it's interesting because what do you ban now for ViV? You're scared of the Irelia. We already know that because that was banned away. You're now going to be scared of the Seraphine. You still have all these other champions. Xin Zhao as well, which I think was a really strong pick. They're actually, interestingly enough, going to go to red side for the second game. Most teams like to prioritize blue side, I think, recently. But now ViV are like, okay, we're just going to give you one strong pick, but we're just going to take two for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think Formulation Or rather, for Viv, yeah, I think that maybe the final counter pick is going to be important for them. Like, I think the thought of like a last pick counter pick, maybe to at least get full sight of the Formulation Gaming comp before they commit to something, might be something that's important for them. You'll see the Camille ban, the Olaf ban. Obviously, Tyra's Olaf is another jungler that loves to play that particular pick. Gragas comes through as a ban. Rakan, I think, is a nice ban versus Zawa. I wonder if they were wondering that other picks were more influential than the Seraphine this time round, and therefore are not that interested in banning the Seraphine. I think, for Formulation with the Seraphine, it really does depend on the composition, which is why we worked so well as a final pick on red side. So maybe Viv saying if we go red side, we maybe don't need to worry as much about Seraphine becoming a nuisance in the next draft.
Yeah, essentially, but the only problem with being on red side is that you can't really ban these, unique champions on the side of Formulation, because you have to ban Rakan, you have to ban the Karma, which we've seen is such a high priority at the moment, and you kind of have to ban the Gragas as well, because on the red side, you don't want to give any of them away in the first pick. So now Viv on the red side, they're not going to be banning away, the likes of Irelia, the likes of Seraphine. We might be going for the same sort of thing, but again, Formulation, they go for the Fiora priority, but now this is where I want to see Viv change things up. I don't want to see the Ziggs. Interesting enough, they take away Don's Irelia. This is really, really interesting. I'm not too sure if Viv have played Irelia before. I'm not really too sure, but this is definitely already very, very different from what we saw from game number 1.
Yeah, I think the Fiora was the obvious first pick for FMG because it was not banned, and also the Viv have shown a tendency to play away from that particular champion. But the Irelia seems like a denial pick that doesn't necessarily need to happen. Don could very easily. They see the Ari very early on for Sharks here, so they're just securing comfort. I imagine that we might end up seeing Milut go on to the Irelia then. I know Irelia jungle is a thing, but competitively, I don't know if it's as viable. So that's your solo lanes that have basically been exposed right now for Viv, which is kind of ruining red side advantage just a little bit, but nonetheless, they decided that comfort is far more important to them. They are going to pick up the Wukong this time around. So whether that is going to be Keymal Wukong jungle, we see Keymal on the Fiora, and we see UI playing Wukong top, we'll have to see. I wouldn't even put it past Don to play Wukong mid, for instance, either. That's very interesting. Already a bit of a wild draft opening up here. And let's see what Don, or rather Formulation, look to round this out with. They're not particularly scared of the Ziggs, obviously, so they're not that bothered about that. Whether they think that this is already a good comp, they're going to go for the Corki.
Oh, yeah, true.
That is another Fico pick, right? So that's pretty solid.
Yeah, that got banned away from Viv in the first game as well. So again, kind of the downside of being on red side, you can't ban these picks that you would normally want to ban away. The likes of Corki, Irelia, Seraphine, like this as well. You give Feko a comfort like Corki. You give Formulation a pick, and here we go. Kranix on Vayne. This is what I wanted to see from Kranix. I don't think we're going to be seeing top lane Vayne. It's not going to be an Acolyte special this game, I don't think. Hopefully we get to see something like Kranix on Vayne instead. This is very interesting. This is completely different to what we saw in game number 1 for Viv. Interesting enough that they were kind of prioritizing Shards. I think, like you said, just getting him on a comfort pick. They don't want 5 or 6 mid lane champions banned like there were last game as well, and then denying the way the Irelia. This is really, really interesting. This is really interesting indeed. I like it though. Corki versus Vayne. Corki, I think, in the laning phase will definitely have a lot freer of a time against Vayne, but Vayne is able to scale quite a lot. Be interested to see what Corki build we'll see. We've seen loads of different Corki builds now, even Storm Razor coming in. We saw interesting enough, Black Cleaver, Morella Nomicon Corki last week as well. So there's loads of different Corki builds. So it's going to be interesting to see what build he's going to be picking up.
Yeah, man, I think also it's difficult to kind of fully know where Corki is kind of sitting in the meta right now, because we don't get to see him as much. And I think with the Storm Razor build, we're seeing a lot more other AD carries coming into the fold. We'll see the Akali, we'll see the Vi and the Janna here. Yeah. So Vi against Tyras, and I guess Janna against Floor. A lot of couple of assassins banned away against Don too. I think maybe they were thinking that Don could opt into the Yasuo pick in the mid lane, but we'll see what Fico chooses to pick up for Formulation. They're going to deny the Vi, and they're going to pick up they're immediately going to pick up the Nami here.
Don't know if the Vi is just a mistake, because they banned Vi himself.
Yeah, sorry.
It's going to be taken away.
Just a mistake. Let's see what they actually chose to pick in just a minute.
I really like the ban so for formulation. You know, the lockdown to deny now away from Tyrus, and we know that pretty much every single time Krenex has played Vayne, that floor always goes to Janna. I think that's kind of like his pocket pick going towards a floor. Interesting enough, Brom is getting picked up with the core key, so just denying away, you know, the likes of the Nami wave. Ari's damage as well can also be blocked by Brom's shield, but again, I really like Formulation's draft. I like their bans. I like their draft overall. ViV have a traditional AD carry with now a Nami, which is not as protective as a Janna. I think that's why Floor is so comfort on Janna, and that's why they pick it so much, is because when you have a Vayne by your side, you want to have a support with you to be able to protect you against these bruisers like the Wukong, like the Fiora, and like the Renekton as well. And this is going to be crazy. But Tyrus goes for his classic Nunu. Yeah, we've seen it before. I think it's honestly a really good pick. We talk about Nunu as like a zone control pick as well, and against the likes of Fiora, Wukong, and Renekton, it's going to be able to create the distance for Krenex to be able to auto attack and just have his free time.
Yeah, I think right now, you know, you're looking at a very, very interesting setup, but it's got a lot of protection for the Vayne. And I think for Formulation, you know, it's going to be difficult to get through that front line to the Vayne as easily. So Vayne should be able to relatively swiftly take out things like the Braum, the Renekton, and the Wukong. Although I do really like Braum into Vayne, because even if you just land one basic attack, or even if you just land the Winter's Bite or the knock-up, you know, you're looking at a situation where Vayne can get locked down super easily. So lots of single target CC is quite nice for Vayne, especially like sort of like not skill shot orientated CC. So things like the Ruthless Predator and Renekton, the knockup from the Wukong, the stun from the Braum. Like, there are lots of ways that you can handle Vayne here for Formulation Gaming. However, it's a very Krenex pick, and when the chips are down, Krenex pulls out the big guns, and that's exactly what he's done here for ViV.
I think he said in Champ Select, I think it's like, okay, coach, just get me on an AD carry. Just get me on something that I can carry with, because we saw in the last game, he just wasn't impactful at all on the Ziggs. He couldn't really do too much. He didn't die at all, but he just couldn't really do that much damage, and he wasn't really that impactful. But now we get to see him on this Vayne pick against 3 heavy AD bruisers as well, you know, especially if the likes of Fiora and Wukong are probably going to be building Divine Sundra. Renekton is probably not going to build Divine Sundra, but there's a lot of tanks that Vayne does really, really well into. And now we're going to see it. We see Don on Fiora mid. It's going to be Kamau on the Wukong jungle instead this game.
That's interesting. And that means Don will be back on the mid lane Fiora. And I'd say that out of any of the matchups, Fiora has the best melee into ranged matchup that you can get, realistically, out of the rest of the options that you had. Mostly because Lunge is still the most obnoxious ability in the world. You see they're just going to spy out Tyras in the jungle right now. And you can see there, I mean,
wow.
Sharks, you have to expect it, right? Like, there's no way that a Fiora just randomly walks into a lunge and doesn't expect to get immediately charmed near the tower. But it's a great stun from Don. But you can kind of see why, in general, Fiora is good into these matchups that she shouldn't really be as good into. It's just because she can make that lunge happen from ridiculous range.
Yeah, I think that's the same with like Irelia as well, is that you can just do so well against these mages, because even though that you do have the range advantage, as a mage, when you can just dash on to the mages, that's kind of the weak spot of the mages, that you can't really do that much when someone dies on top of you. I like that UI's gone for the new skin, the new April Fool skin that just came out today. So
cool. I love that skin. It's very cool.
Renekton? Is it Renekton? I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Renekton. Very, very cool skin. So keeping up with the skin game, which is quite nice to see. But now Tyrus has to try and cover in the mid lane, and Floor's also here as well. So just pushing out the mid lane waves, so then Sharks can look to roam around, and they're going to look to try and get this top lane scuttle. But I think it's going to be, actually, Milup takes away the top scuttle as well. So he got that early priority against UI. He was like, okay, I'm going to go into the jungle. I'm going to go into River Story and take the Rift Scuttler. And they're able to take both Rift Scuttlers away from Kamau. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage early on for him.
So I think that's something you got to be worried about if you're playing Wukong jungle. You generally are relatively weak, and your clear speed isn't as good as a lot of the other junglers in the meta. That's a double bubble from Floor there. Nothing to action on it, though. Takes the UI very low. Milup almost takes him down there. Oh, that was close. Milup kind of... That's a matchup that that Renekton should win really hard as well. So this is a bit rough for Renekton.
I think because Renekton went for a Ruby Crystal first, which you don't really see too much, to be fair. So it doesn't have the extra AD. But like you said, you know, most of the time in the early game as a Renekton, you can just take these small trades against Irelia and then just back off afterwards and just dash away. But Milip just had the early game advantage. He went to take the risk Scuttler, which gave him a little bit more experience. He was able to get level 5 and jump onto UI. Both the Baron laners use their summoner spells as well, but I guess it's okay that UI survived in the end. He's only about 100 gold down as well. It's probably going to be coming back with this wave pushing in here for Milip. But yeah, very, very interesting start. And you can see now that the solo lanes of ViV are kind of struggling against Formulation. Tyrus is going to look to go in, but they don't know the rest of Formulation is here.
Oh, they were waiting for them, and the stuns come through. The knockups are there. Tyrus is trying to buy a bit of time, and he gets it with the first blood. Oh! He gets it with an absolutely huge Nunu ultimate. Bought enough time and took down the majority of Formulation Gaming there. Fico gets stunned up though, pushed away from Kranix, who is trying to get towards. Oh, the flash from Fico! He wanted to make sure that he secured that, and he buys back a little bit of love for the Formulation Gaming roster, who are around 2k gold down now versus ViV.
Yeah, that 3 versus 3 fight in the Baron lane, I thought that was going to be Formulation coming out on top because they set up the bait pretty perfectly there. But like you said, the Nunu ultimate, the crowd control as well, Milip was able to survive that entire time, and a floor coming in afterwards with all the healing, with the Nami wave as well. And Theko winning the 1 versus 1 against Kranix. So I think, like I said already, you know, Corki kind of wins out in the early game against Vayne because you kind of need a few items with Vayne beforehand. But that flash by Theko was so smart. He actually kind of predicted the flash in the end. We're going to see the replay up in this Baron lane, but you can see that Milip was able to survive so long with his second ability, and Tyrus able to combine his third ability with his ultimate. You can see the Nami wave on top of that as well was so clean. But you can see the fight here. It actually started off with Theko just doing a lot of poke damage to Kranix, and Kranix tried to walk up. Look, it's a cannon minion bait. Kranix tried to take the cannon minion, and in the end, the flash by Theko here. Oh, it was so good. And Kranix's flashed actually went over the honey fruit, which is absolutely tragic. I hate to see that. He tried to flash to take the honey fruit, but instead flashed over the honey fruit, and he wasn't able to get the extra healing. But really nice 1v1. But now ViV, they're able to take 2 Baron lane towers as well. And even though they lost Cloud Dragon, I think you take that on the side of ViV.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, this is a huge gold input for ViV. After the first game they had, this is a great resurgence in this second game of the series, and they kind of needed this. They need this kind of boost in order to get themselves back on the saddle a little bit. And I think one of the things that I think ViV have got to be a little conscious of is that they're obviously playing towards the Vayne being the ultimate win condition here, and that's the only person that's ever so slightly behind. But Milip is popping off with 5,100 gold, and he's got almost 1.5k lead on UI at this point in time. So he's in a smurfing position, as is Tyrus. Like, Kimao is so far behind on this Wukong jungle. Tyrus has already picked up a massive tank item and also has the stone plate enchant in time for the next team fight. So, you know, the big members of ViV are kind of really ahead at this point in time.
Yeah, definitely. Milip showing the, if he doesn't get camped, then he could definitely win the 1v1 against UI. I think in the first game, he was a little bit unfortunate that Kimao was always up in the Baron lane. And speaking of up in the Baron lane, looks like Kimao and Don are going to try and take this Baron lane tower to try and even things up in the tower again. Looks like they are going to take it down the end of ViV. They're not really doing anything to kind of counter this. They're trying to push the mid wave, but it's just 2 versus 2 situation. They're going to try and go down the bot lane, but to be honest, if UI just ulties and just goes in, yeah, he can just clear the wave completely fine.
He's got the redemption coming through here as well. He's going to try and flash away. Milip flashes the wrong way. Milip flashed the wrong way there, and UI gets away with it. Surprisingly enough, though, UI didn't do a huge amount of damage, though. So Kimao just trying to recoup some gold in the mid lane here. Has been given access to lane minions, which he wouldn't usually be able to do. Loads of damage from Fico onto Kranix, though. Kranix have to be a little careful here. He's not able to go toe-to-toe with the Corki just yet.
Yeah, really well played by UI just to survive and stop ViV from taking that bot lane tower. So 2 towers to 2 at the moment. Formulation do have the Cloud Dragon, so they're going to be getting that extra movement speed, which, to be honest, is really, really good for their team comp, especially for, you know, champions like Kamau, UI, and Don that just want to look to engage and go in. The gold lead is still in Viv's favor, though. You know, Millip 1,000 gold ahead, over 1,000 gold ahead. Tyrus as well, over 1,000 gold ahead. Is kind of the gold lead that Viv have at the moment, is kind of on this top side or Baron side of the map. And it looks like Millip will be going for the Divine Sunder as the second item with the Blade of the Rune King as well. And Millip showing Don that, you know, even though it can be a Don pick, they can deny it away from themselves, and Millip can still pick it up for himself and dominate on this champion.
He's doing a great job of it so far as well, still maintaining a healthy lead over the Renekton, yep, who's gone for the Blade of the Ruin King. Like we said, picked up the Ruby Crystal early on, but that's obviously going to go towards a Black Cleaver. Guess we're getting towards Kimau looking for a Divine Sunderer, but he's a little ways off that just yet. The next Rift Herald spawning, Tyra's in a great spot, nearly level 10, really strong on this Nunu for the time being. And I don't know if it's going to be easy enough for Formulation Gaming to contest this if they want to. That's a really big engage coming out from Kimau for the time being, but he just gets immediately taken down. That was a very silly place to go in by yourself. And you can see in the meantime, Fico on the side lane completely by himself. That was a really nicely timed riposte coming out from Dom, but they can't follow up on the fight as the Aurelia just manages to slow them down. Who picked up? Was that a secure by Tyras there on the Rift Herald?
I'm not too sure. I think it was. I think he used his ultimate and his smite, if I'm not mistaken. We'll have to check in to see if he did pick it up or not, because we can't actually see him on the minimap. But I guess he did. Can we see his purple hands? We can see his purple hands. Yeah.
He picked it up, so it's nice. Good win for Viv there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 1-for-1 in the end, but Viv being able to take the Rift Herald. To be honest, they could just use this Rift Herald mid lane, break the mid lane tower, and use that pressure of the Rift Herald to take the Mountain Dragon, but maybe they feel like they don't need it. It looks like Formulation just going to give up this dragon completely. Mountain Dragon, not really the strongest and most contested dragon, to be fair, so not really surprised that Formulation were like, okay, we don't want to take any more risks at the moment, because they're kind of falling behind longer, you know, more and more this game, and especially against the Vayne as well. We're going to see that team fight again. Kamau again going in by himself on this Wukong, kind of same with Millip, and just seeing that you can't really do too much. And it was Tyrus in the end picking up the Rift Herald. But like I said, great riposte, but also a great flash as well by Tyrus to deny the stun, I believe, that could have come out from Don. So well played by both teams on either side, and honestly this is a very, very close game compared to the previous kind of domination, really. You can see Veko going for the Manimune build into Storm Razor. I think this is the more general build. Sometimes you see Essence Reaver into Storm Razor, but I think this is the more general one because you just want to spam as much abilities as you can, and Manimune helps with the scaling of Corki as well. And Storm Razor overall is just a great item. It looks like Kranix is also going to go for the Storm Razor again, kind of a normal build now on Vayne. You go, you know, Blade Rune King into Storm Razor because Solari Charge Blade doesn't give you that extra 50% crit anymore, and it isn't really used as like an early game item. So you'll probably be seeing Blade Rune King into Storm Razor, maybe into like Phantom Dancer and Infinity Edge as well, maybe looking for like a Storm Razor last item, or even Wit's End could be good.
Yeah, I think Wit's End definitely featuring because that's a really strong item for Vayne in general. Storm Razor makes a lot of sense though. It actually plays very much into what Vayne wants to do. Gives that little energized slow, which enables her to chase down a specific target. So, yeah, I think Storm Razor in general, you're seeing the power of a single item and how it can completely shift the meta in 3.1. And that's exactly what Storm Razor has done. Now it got that added little buff. It's going to be an attempted engage as Floor is forced to flash away. Tyrus is on the wrong side of the pit right now, and it'll be UI that gets dropped over with that blast cone. He'll try to get away here, but here comes Miloop. There will be an aggressive redemption to try and allow that engage to come through, but it won't quite happen.
Bit of a scrappy fight, to be fair. It was a little bit back and forth. Both teams were completely split. For Formulation going to use this and be like, okay, we're just going to take mid lane tower. And Viv, even though they have the gold lead, it seems like they're kind of losing control a little bit of the map. But saying that, Millip should be able to, oh no, he's not going to be able to take the Baron lane, the Dura lane tower as well. So Viv are going to look to try and use this Rift Herald. They're just going to break the mid lane tower. You don't even need to auto attack it at all. You don't need to take any risks. You should be able to take this unless the Rift Herald dies. Great bubble though. Oh, it didn't charge.
Wait, it didn't charge? Oh my gosh, that was an absolutely insane bubble. And it didn't even charge. Another desperate to make something happen here. Another really good bubble as a follow-up. The engage could come through as Tyrus is on the front line. He's forced to flash away. The clone will drop, and I think Formulation just be very happy they got out of that one without losing any lives.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to pick up any kills, Viv, but they're going to take the mid lane tower, which I think was the main purpose of why they were all grouped in mid lane anyway. The Rift tower didn't charge, but they were able to brute force their way and take that mid lane tower. Divine Sunderers galore across the builds at the moment for Fiora, for Wukong as well, and also for Millip on this Irelia. Then you're probably going to be seeing Death Stances again across the board as well. No surprises really, you know, kind of the normal builds that we seem to see now on Bruisers. Looks like Fekko might be going towards the Infinity Edge as the third item, and then might look for a Solari Charge Blade third or fourth or fifth item. Because Solari Charge Blade is still a good item, but because it doesn't give you that extra 50% crit, but it does deal more damage, and it also the extra damage, the extra magic damage that you get after using an ability can crit now, so you mainly want to use it as like this late game item. But now the next dragon is going to be up. It's going to be Ocean Dragon, which I think is a huge dragon for both teams. You know, getting the extra magical and physical vamp could be really helpful for Ari, for Vayne as well, and even for Miller. And then on the other side as well, when you have 3 bruisers from formulation, they're going to be doing really going to love an Ocean Dragon, especially because they already have the Cloud Dragon on top of that. But Tyra's going to go in. I think we're going to get a team fight around this dragon.
They absolutely are, and you can see they are going straight in on top of this redemption. That's a great wave, and there's a nice stasis to buy some time. There's a nice knock-up from Keemao, but they need to see the follow-up now because he's already in stasis. That'll be Tyrus buying some time on the front line. The package used defensively, but he's not getting shut down. He will, though, by Milup. He's still going. He gets stunned up, and actually Viv are absolutely on top here as Milup gets a triple kill. Keemao forced out, and they have the Baron on the cards and an inhibitor tower on the top side of the map that they could take.
Oh, wow. I honestly thought that was going to go in the formulation's favor, but in the end, Millip in the backline just absolutely destroying Fekko on the Corki. The package, like you said, was used defensively, and I think that was actually kind of a downside. I feel like if Fekko uses package offensively, you see Millip didn't have an ultimate, the Nami wave wasn't really that good, and the re-engage by formulation was so good. Keemao on top of the Bronze ulti as well. But you see, this ultimate from the package, from Fekko was just used defensively, but Millip was still able to just jump onto the backline, which just allowed him to just dash away, keep getting the resets on the first ability, and a triple kill for Millip as well. He's been absolutely destroying this game. He destroyed UI in the Baron lane. He got that gold lead, and now he's using that gold lead in these team fights to give Viv that advantage.
Well, Viv are in the driving seat here in the second game of the series. Definitely coming back against Formulation game. This is such a swing series. We really thought the Formulation were just in complete control, and they looked like untouchable based on their first game. But now it is Viv with the comfort of Kranix on his vein, and honestly, Tyra's. When Tyra's is comfortable, Viv look comfortable. You know, when he's on a champion that he knows his limits on, doesn't require like a ridiculous mechanical prowess to make work. You can see Keemao tries to make the engage happen here, as we can see that Milup is on the other side of the map, but I mean, Keemao's just getting chunked. This Wukong jungle is one of the problems. You just can't get the gold necessary to really be useful in these teamfight situations.
Yeah, like you said, the jungle clear is not really there, but they're going to look to go in, and they could end the game right here.
I think they might be ending the game. They've at least taken one member down, which is UI, who's had a pretty rough game in a matchup that he really should have won. And you can see now they're going on to the second inhibitor tower. Looks like Formulation will get pushed to a third game in this series as they drop 2 inhibitor towers, but then immediately look for the retreat here.
Yeah, they're going to go back for now. I think they're just going to look to reset, spend the gold that they got from the kill and also from the 2 inhibitor towers. And then all they need to do now is really push this push this Baron lane. But you see UI got completely caught here. Nothing really you could do as a Renekton, because you're still quite squishy with Renekton. You're not going for like the Divine Sundry. You're going Blade Rune King plus Black Cleaver. So it's not really a tanky bruiser that we see in, you know, for the likes of like Wukong, for example, and Fiora. But yeah, like you said, you know, Wukong hasn't been having a good time at all this game. I think he got put behind already in the early game by not taking any of the scuttle crabs because his jungle clear is very slow. He's been kind of nerfed a few times in the jungle as well, because it looks like the Riot kind of wants Wukong to go more into the Baron lane, which I think is his favorable role. But look at this huge minion wave as well in the Baron lane, honestly. And Millip's just going in. He's playing with absolute fire right now. They're just going to take this third inhibitor. Look at that. It's like 5 cannon minions there.
I think he's just, you know, feeling absolutely gassed from his early laning phase as well. Like, just popped off versus a Renekton in lane, which was pretty insane, honestly. I think UI definitely got taken to the cleaners, though I will say that there was that counter gank that really kind of set the game up for Miloop, where Tyrus is able to get a really huge ultimate off that I think really put Formulation Gaming a little further behind than they wanted to be. Formulation are now staring down a 9k gold disadvantage right now, and they have both the Elder Infernal and the Baron spawning in the next sort of 35-40 seconds, which is going to be two objectives that they need to contest, and if they don't contest them, they probably lose the game. So it feels like a bit of an end game scenario right now for Formulation Gaming.
Yeah, it's kind of a be-all and end-all really for Formulation, especially in this game. But Tyrus could be caught out here, but he's so tanky.
He's really tanky, but he is getting taken low. He's going to buy some time. Look at that shield, man. Look at how big that shield is on Tyrus, and he cannot get taken down for the life of him. The charm comes through. We have an untouched Vayne frontlining here as ViV like confidently waltz their way down that mid lane. They didn't even need Miloop in this fight. Miloop is going to flush in, actually just misses his ultimate, but it's all for style points at the end of the day, and they are going to then push in onto that Nexus, and ViV will be taking us to a game 3 in this series, which really didn't look like it was going to be the case here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think after the first game, I think we were all shocked, but this is the ViV that we know. You know, Kranix on an AD carry, Nunu on Tyrus as well, just the comfort picks for ViV, which we didn't really see in the first game. We saw, like, you know, Ziggs, Galio, all these champions that we don't really want ViV to prioritize, but you get ViV on his comfort champions, and Tyrus in the end as well was so tanky on this Nunu. But I think, as you mentioned, the kind of counter gank here from Floor up in this Baron lane with the bubble and the Nami wave as well kind of set up ViV to steamroll this game. And to be honest, I love seeing Kranix on an AD carry, you know, seeing him back on his vein, seeing back on a champion that we know he can play, we know that he could do so well on. And I think, like you said as well, Excalibur, I think when Tyrus is on a pick that he's comfortable with, and he's not really on a champion that he needs to engage and really do too much, he could just be that zone control, he could just be that frontline tank that Nunu does. You can see through all these team fights, he was just able to use his ultimate. He was able to survive so long. You can see here how long he survived, actually. If you watch Kranix that entire time, not Kranix, sorry, Tyrus, he survived throughout the entire team fight when he was getting focused on. And it showed as well in that last team fight when he was getting focused on completely in the mid lane, when he was caught out by himself. Stone play on top of the ultimate on top. You can see here as well, here's the replay. Stone play on top of his ultimate. Look at all that shielding. I think the Nami bubble, I think Floor on Nami as well also had a great performance. It's really nice to see, and I'm excited we get a game number 3.
I'm really excited for game number 3. It's going to showcase really the best of these two teams. Both teams now have one game to get to Barcelona. That is the most important outcome of this game. You know, you win this, you are going to Barcelona. It doesn't matter what happens realistically in your next game after that. You know, you're secured. You're at those live finals. And so both teams will be coming in extremely nervous in the second game. ViV absolutely turned this game on its head in this second game of the series, and they are certainly looking more comfortable. And what I think is important is Sharks is on a super comfortable pick. Tyra's got something that was able to fit the vein for Kranix really well, and Miloop just kind of smurfed it on an Irelia in a matchup that actually shouldn't be Irelia favored. So just a great game overall. You can see that Fico, well, look at the damage that Fico did, man. That was a 23k
Look at the damage on ViV. It's really surprising, actually. Kranix didn't even really do that much damage. It's actually Sharks doing most damage.
I mean,
Tyrus
Vayne doesn't really, like, Vayne comes in and just one-shots you, and then you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, true. That is very true, to be fair. But very balanced damage across the board. Even Floor did a lot of damage that game as well on the Nami, surprisingly. But yeah, very back and forth early game, but ViV in the end just able to extend that goal lead throughout the entire game, and they played really well, especially with a comp that they have as well. When you're on a Vayne on a late game scaling pick as well, Irelia also scales well into late game, and when you have these comfort champions like you said from ViV, that's really where they come online now. So third and final game, Excalibur, it's gonna be an exciting one to see how these teams are going to adapt.
Let's have a look at the play of the game before we go to a break here, Stu, and we can kind of see what the most impactful moment of this one was.
Yeah, it's going to be the team fight around that Ocean Dragon, which I think kind of secured the game really for ViV. And it started off with ViV actually not having the best of engages. It's actually really nice counter engage from Kimau and also from the Brom. And it just shows that if you look at Millip here in the backline, he's able to dash in onto the Corki, even on top of the package as well. This has all the physical vamp from the Blade Rune King, has the Divine Sunderer as well. And he's just able to heal up so much from the Divine Sunderer because, you know, the first ability of Irelia can proc the Divine Sunderer. You can get all the extra healing, and when you can keep getting the resets on the first ability, you can keep auto attacking as well with the physical vamp from Blade Rune King. It just shows that Irelia is a very, very strong pick, and I think that's going to be a pick that's going to be very interesting coming into the third game. Will Formulation prioritize the Irelia now to get a comfort pick for Don, even though he's looked really, really strong on the Fiora in this series, or will it just be banned away completely? I'm really, really excited.
I'm super excited, and of course you mentioned we've got one more game in this series to go. Third and final game. Who goes to Barcelona? It's a best of one between ViV and Formulation. We'll find out after the break.
Sorry, I got a bit ahead of myself there.
Frozen over, stuck in time, out of breath in my mind. Is this how it will be when you promise this, you and me? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Till forever, forever us? Could it be us? Could it be us till forever? Forever, say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. Say you'll be mine. Say that you will, say that you will. You will always be the deepest part of me. Heavy hearts healed in time. You ready?
Welcome back to the WREC Last Chance Qualifiers. We are heading into our last game of the day. Guaranteed last game of the day, as we have one more here between Formulation Gaming and ViV Esports. It is all on the line to see who goes to Barcelona. And I think both teams are absolutely itching and getting ready to go here, Stu. It's been a close series. Two relatively dominant games from both sides, realistically.
Yeah, we've seen both sides of both teams, really. You know, we've seen the good side of it for the bad side. We've seen the good side and the bad side of Formulation. So it just comes down to third and final game now to see how the teams have adapted in this series and what new picks are going to be coming out as well, because we've seen some relatively new picks and some comfort picks as well for ViV. But I think ViV are definitely going to look to try and get them comfort picks going into game number 3.
Yeah, the comfort picks clearly worked out for them super well. So I think they'll probably be looking to do the same thing coming into this. But look, we are heading into the final game. And of course, on the sidelines, we've had our boy Hells chilling, waiting to see what his input needs to be, what his wise coaching words for both teams heading into this third game. So Hells has got his key points ready to go. We're going to hear from him.
Indeed. And the first thing that I have to say, ViV Esports had some great rotations early game. We saw that very early kill where they went 3-0, right? That was such an amazing rotation, and especially from Fluor, by the way. I want to highlight Fluor on the Nami. He came in as the support and basically won them the team fight. But then the next point, which is going to be my main point, is Tyrus. Okay, I'm gonna say a lot of things about him. The front lining was amazing, okay? But he did much more. He dealt massive damage. He had massive CC with the Nunu. He was buying his team so much time with his ultimate. He was flashing away every single time right before death. His first ability constantly healed him up. He was smiting jungle camps during a team fight. And he was using a stone plate. This man was unkillable. And to add to that, ViV Esports just had the perfect composition against Formulation Gaming, right? Like if you look at Tyrus on the Nunu, he just went full armor. He became unkillable in the late game, but not only Tyrus, also Millip on the Irelia. He went for the new Death Stance, which gives you 40 armor and resets, right? Like it saves your HP when you get the kills, which Millip was able to get during the fights. And then also the Divine Sunderer against that very tanky composition. So amazing draft and amazing execution from ViV Esports. So let's see how they do it in the third and last games of this series. So back to Stuart and Xcando to get us into it.
Thank you so much, Hells. I can clearly see that Hells is as ramped up and as hyped as we are for this final game of the series. It was like lightning bullets coming out of his mouth. It's got lots on the line. And you mentioned, I think Tyrus had a really good game. I think, like I said in the game, when Tyrus has a good game, I feel like ViV in general have a good game. But it's now up to you, Twitch chat and whatever chat you're in. Who's going to win? It is a voting time. Let us know your favorites to take this series and make their way to Barcelona for the WREC Live Finals. Stu, if you had to bet on someone now, who would it be?
That's a tough one. I think you're definitely putting me under a bit of pressure.
I need an answer. I'm not taking no. I need an answer.
I think I'm going to go for ViV.
Okay.
I think they're going to have the momentum in this game. I think they're going to have a different priority because I believe Formulation are back on the blue side. Yeah, I mean red side. That means that ViV are going to have that first pick priority, but I think they're going to change up from the first game now. And now ViV have kind of that flexibility with the bans as well. They can ban out some of the champions that maybe they don't want to deal with for Formulation. So I think ViV are going to have a slight edge, but honestly, it's so close to call. It's so hard.
Yeah, and I think they probably have learned their lesson from the first draft. The one thing that you need to remember is that obviously the bans do change up, and the way that you prioritize bans change up a little bit. So you're going to see, again, ViV just kind of going for some more of these targeted bans like Zawa's Rakan. You're going to see the Gragas taken away. Interesting that Camille is being sort of so heavily focused here by Formulation. I believe that's probably something that Millip is pretty comfortable playing. So the Camille is getting taken away. The set goes off as well. So ViV working with the ban strategy that worked with them before. They aren't going to change anything up yet.
I mean, I'm really interested why ViV are banning away Gragas, because Sharks is so strong on Gragas. We've seen him play it so many times. It's kind of like his comfort pick, but instead they're looking to ban it away. So looking for something else as a first pick priority. I don't think it's going to be a Ziggs this time. Will the Fiora be open? I don't really feel like ViV are really a Fiora team though. That's kind of the problem really. They could look to try and pick it away, or maybe just pick the Irelia. Irelia could also be an interesting one, but interesting a Formulation ban away the RE, so just denying the champion pool from Sharks, which might mean that we might be seeing a Sharks priority. But to be fair, I've seen him play Gragas and Ari, but after that, I'm not too sure what else he's been picking too much.
I wonder if his first, I wonder if his first pick Irelia time, because obviously your blue side, and Irelia worked so well for Miloop last time round. He's going to get his hands on that, and again, denies from Don. Can't question it. I didn't think it was a great strategy last time round, but can't question it because it worked so well for ViV in the previous game. Just need to see that happen again. Now, Formulation, they're probably wondering whether Fiora is worth it for them. Like, you know, Fiora, is it going to work for this? I think Don has had some good performances on Fiora, but I think the way that they're going, they're drafting these. Oh, the Olaf's left open. That's a great one to start off with. The way that they've drafted has kind of left them like always going down a 2 melee solo lane route, which I think sometimes. Sorry,
bless you.
I've got a bit of a cold right now, and I just a huge sneeze. Yeah, it kind of limits them. I think when you have a double solo lane, I think it kind of has a limit, and they. You sometimes miss out on that mage a little bit, which I think can help team fights overall. But the Ziggs will get locked in here. It was banned, I think, on the previous game. So that's going to get locked in for Formulation Gaming.
Yeah, interesting. Formulation are the ones that are going to be prioritizing the Ziggs instead, which means that they're looking to go for like this triple bruiser top side of the map, potentially trying to pick up Lulu as well. Now, the interesting thing is does Floor just pick away the Lulu here? Because Lulu Olaf is still such a really strong combo. Obviously, Yumi's currently disabled, so that can't be away. And there we go, more comfort picks. Now this could potentially be a Lulu for ViV, which makes things really, really interesting. Because now, do you pick Lulu on the side of ViV? It doesn't, it not only takes it away, but it also works really, really well with Vayne. Or do you pick away another bruiser, heavy AD bruiser that can maybe potentially be taken away, like the Fiora or someone else as well. But Formulation, I think, are going to look for Lulu with Olaf. So I think Lulu might be the final pick here for ViV.
Yeah, I think Lulu Vayne's obviously great, but the problem is, I like this. The problem with Lulu is I think you lose the lane really hard to Ziggs if you go Lulu Vayne. So I think you have to be really careful about the fact that you're going to get starved so heavily if you have to pick Lulu at this point. And I think whilst Lulu Olaf is definitely a threat, you can probably think about ways of mitigating it. It's not the be-all and end-all of this draft. And I think Lulu in general is a good support, but has to be picked in the right circumstances. And it's not just a simple case of like, I pick Jinx, I pick Vayne, must pick Lulu. It's about what it offers. And they're going to go for the Leona here, because I believe they're really just very concerned with that single target CC and locking down things like the Vayne or the Irelia. But it's looking like a strong draft from Formulation. And with the Leona getting locked in, means they've got a lot of engaged potential and a lot of ways for Olaf to follow up and kind of find those targets.
I think engage is the key for both teams here. You've got an assassin on one side with the Akali. You've got Miloop that wants to jump in as well onto Irelia. They're going to try and jump on the Ziggs in the backline. But on the other side, you've got either UI or maybe Kamau on the Olaf being able to jump forward. You've got Leona that wants to engage as well. So both teams just want to dive in. They want to engage completely onto the backlines of both teams. With that Ziggs and the Vayne being on the backline, like you said, Vayne's going to have a little bit of a struggle with lane phase against Ziggs, unless it's a mid lane Ziggs. But I highly doubt it's really a Don pick, to be fair. But again, Formulation banning away the Janna, very, very clever, because like I said before, most of the time you're going to be seeing Janna paired with Vayne, and also Nami being banned away as well. Interesting. So denying the champion pool from Floor, which just kind of sets up really perfectly for a Lulu, even though I don't think Lulu is going to be a good pick, because I think there's just going to be so many bruisers that Formulation are going to bring out, and you especially when you have an Olaf running towards you, a Leona that can knock you down as well, and Ziggs in the backline doing so much damage. But when Janna and Nami are kind of off the board, who else do you really have as like a enchanter to buff this Vayne, unless you just completely skip out the enchanter in general?
I think you're right, and I think the problem with Lulu is that it's a really bad pick into Leona, because Leona just can find so many engaged potentials. But it's going to be the Fiora that comes
banned again.
through.
Another mistake.
So I almost problem. Just my eyes are just not registering them literally on top of each other. We'll have to wait to see what that pick is going to be here. Obviously, the Jace comes through here from Formulation Gaming, so I'm imagining that is for likely Kimau. No, Kimau's jungle Olaf. So maybe probably Don, I think, at this point in time. But we'll have to see. We'll wait until the draft gets fixed up and we can see exactly what's been picked.
Yeah, no Don for, I was going to say no Don for Irelia. No Irelia for Don, and no Camille. Camille. I'm losing my words here. No Fiora and no Irelia for Don. So it looks like he's going to be going back onto the Jace. Like I said before, I think Jace has kind of fallen out of the meta really, because he doesn't really work too well with any of the new items like Divine Sundra or anything like that. You kind of more go for lethality build, which doesn't really do too well when you have these beefy frontline bruisers that have Divine Sundra, because it's so hard to really burst them down. Yeah, Viv are just
this is not the draft, because
yeah, this is definitely not the draft.
That's a mental draft if that's the case. But nonetheless,
I'm not too sure if Lulu. I don't know if Lulu's supposed to be on the other side.
Yeah.
I instead think that Viv picked Lulu instead, but now we have double Jace, we have double Fiora, we've got double of everything. It's like the old classic double Shen
WTF, 2 Shens. Like, yeah,
exactly. The classic.
Hopefully we won't have to redo the whole draft again, and we can kind of see what happens when we get into game, because we were basically at the end. But yeah, I think there are a couple of picks there at the end that we were just waiting to kind of get clarification on. I think Lulu being picked up clearly going to go towards the side of, I would say, Vayne, but as you mentioned, it depends on the draft. I think Lulu Vayne's still, relatively good in all circumstances. So, you're just going to be careful how you play the laning phase versus a Leona, I would say, Stu.
Yeah, you need to play very, very safe against the Leona, and especially against the Ziggs as well, because when you can combo the Leona ultimate and also the Ziggs ultimate on top of that as well, it's going to be really, really hard for them in the laning phase to kind of struggle. But it still scales up really, really well. The Vayne and Lulu still scale up really, really well into late game. So we'll have to see what the final picks were going to be, as it looks like we're going to be jumping straight into game.
I think it was Lulu for Viv, and it was Xin Zhao for Formulation Gaming. So Xin Zhao for Kemal coming back in, which is a really good pick for him in the first game. I think something he was clearly very comfortable on, and something that's really good in the Divine Sundra meta as well. So we'll be able to talk a bit more about the comps once we get into game, Stu. Once we can kind of see where all of those picks have landed and exactly how these comps are going to play out. It'll be cool to discuss what we think the win conditions will end up being as we're heading into the final game of the series. Barcelona place on the line. Viv versus Formulation, and it is Don on the Jace. It is going to be a Xin Zhao jungle with UI playing lane Olaf top, which is something that usually only gets pulled out in very specific circumstances, or if you're Adam from Fnatic in the not Fnatic anymore, BDS in the LEC team. It will be Vayne, Lulu, bot, Shargs is going to be on the area this time around. Lulu on the Akali, and my least favorite jungler in the world is Riven, which is going over to tower.
Yeah, so the other pick for Viv was the Riven, so not really a Tyrus pick, to be honest with you. Not really this tank that we would like to see Tyrus on, like a Vi or anyone like that. But yeah, I don't really see Sharks playing too much Akali, so not really surprised that Millip is on the Akali instead. I think we've seen Millip do really, really well on Akali, but I think he's going to be having a really, really tough time against UI on this Olaf, because Olaf could just keep running towards you, keep doing so much damage with his axes that he can keep picking up with his true damage as well. You can see Millip is having a little bit of a hard time already, even though UI is running out of mana, so he can't really be using his abilities too much. But yeah, Feko on Ziggs, so it's an interesting one. I mean, if you look at Kemal on this Xin Zhao pick again, I think it's quite a decent pick, because it stops the damage from Kranix. He has to go like really, really close in his ultimate. And also, again, it stops the engage from the likes of Millip. You can knock Millip out of his shroud. You can knock Tyrus away and Shargs away, and as I said before, I think Xin Zhao at the moment, I think, like you said as well, with the Divine Sundra, with the Black Cleaver at the moment, can be so tanky, but Shark is having a difficult time, but the rest of Viv are here, and Don is actually the one in trouble. But look at this, rotations across the map, it's all to do with the mid lane, and Sharks needs to be a little bit careful, but to be able to get away to safety.
Sharks struggling in this matchup. It is a tough matchup for Irelia, if you can't find your moments to get in on the Jace. But he hasn't died, and that's the main thing. Also noticing that it's a bit of a tough one for Flora and Kranix. We did mention that the Lulu is a rough matchup into the Leona, so you have to be very careful about your positioning, and we expected the Ziggs and Leona to dominate this matchup from the very get-go. Twitch chat is pretty confident in Viv. They are 73% confident, to be exact. I think with the Tyra's Riven jungle, I'm not entirely sold, and I think Formulation have certainly come out swinging at the very start of this game. Let's see how it pans out, though. Got a lot to play for, as we mentioned. Both teams will be on edge, not willing to take any major risks.
Yeah, you don't want to take any risks, as like you said, you can book your with this win, this final game. If you do win this, you do beat your ticket to Barcelona, whether it's the play-ins or the main stage of Barcelona. So, it's pretty huge for both these teams coming into this. I think coming into the tournament in general, we didn't really think that ViV and Formulation would be up there as the teams go into to Barcelona, but they both performed really, really well, and they both proven that they can definitely be up there and contest with some of the best, because ViV took games against Game Lord, Formulation even took down Team Queso. So it's nice to see the players and teams that we don't really expect too much from are coming in and proving themselves to be something that we're not really expecting.
I think I'm looking towards Kemal to be a driver here. The top side of the map with UI on the Olaf and Kemal on the Xin Zhao. These are going to be like two really strong early game picks that should be really well functioning around these neutral objectives. Floor is just attempting to be a bit of a nuisance around the Rift Herald, doing a lot of rotating and roaming right now. Kranix is obviously going to be the focal point here for ViV. Needs to be on his absolute A game on this vein, but he's a little behind at the moment. Just a little behind. No one else really getting major advantages. Like I said, probably looking at a game where you're expecting a very, very, very calm and calculated approach to fights and how you want to take them, because a single mistake could potentially cost you a place in Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you said already, kind of all eyes are going to be on Kranix in this game to see if he's able to stay alive, because it's going to be quite hard when you got, UI jumping onto you. You got the Leona as well. That can be really, really difficult to deal with. And Miller had to flash away there from UI, used his Ignite as well to kind of stop the healing from Olaf. But that's going to be a free dragon over to the side of ViV. And to be honest, Formulation are a bit slow on this Rift Herald, but it looks like they'll be able to take it in time anyway, just using the eye on the back of the Herald to just deal that little bit of extra damage. And it's just going to be a trade of objectives for now. And UI's having a pretty nice time at the moment in this Baron lane against Millip. As expected, really, Akali doesn't really do too well in the early laning phases. You have to kind of get a few items and get into the team fights when you can look to assassinate the backline. Interesting enough, Zawa's gone for Spooky Ghosts, as we like to call it, even though it's called Shadows. It's still called Spooky Ghosts in my eyes. Interesting, to be fair. I think just trying to get the slows to try and combo the crowd control and combo the ultimate, I would expect. But most of the time, I might be mistaken, but most of the time, I think Stoneplate is just the better option, especially when you're diving in.
I think also, look, let me put it from this perspective. I think Spooky Ghosts in this instance is specifically going to be used to try and limit Vayne's movement wherever possible. So I think for Zawa, like if you can land a Spooky Ghost on Vayne in the right scenario, like it makes Vayne that much easier to lock down. And does it grant vision of the target as well?
I was about to say the same thing. I'm not too sure if it actually grants vision of like Akali as well, which might be another reason. But they're going straight in, and Sharks is dead. He's
just dead. They found the opportunity, they waited, and they locked him down. Sharks has not had the performance that he maybe would have wanted on the Aurelia, and Kemal gets away with this too. I think with the Ziggs, they're going to pick up 2 kills and first turret of the game with absolute ease. Formulation Gaming, they build up a 3.5 gold lead, just 3.5k gold lead off the back of nothing.
Just like that, 4,000, 3,500 gold lead, and ViV can't really get much from this. They're actually going to look to try and push in the second tower. I don't think they're going to stay here, but they're going to get a second charge anyway, which is still huge because it's still an extra 3 turret plates going over to the side, or 2 turret plates, sorry, going over to the side of Formulation. So that's a lot of gold that Formulation have just got now. We saw in the first game when Formulation could get that early game lead, and honestly, it was really, really well played by Kemal and Zawa, just going through the jungle of ViV, and Sharks did not expect them to be there at all. And you can see the lockdown of Zawa when you can use the ultimate, combo that with all your other CC abilities. The chain CC on top of the damage by Kemal as well was easily able to burst down Sharks. And one step ahead now, Formulation. They're going to look to try and accelerate this gold lead now and try and close out this game. But with Kranix in the mid lane farming up, it's still going to be a little bit difficult.
You see that I think they need to wait a little longer for Kranix to have like 2 to 3 items before they can really start to contest effectively. I think when you've given such a nice lead over to your Xin Zhao and over to your Jace, this is going to be a point in the game that's going to be quite difficult for ViV to kind of negotiate. I don't really think they have any picks that play particularly well from behind. You know, like Riven, Irelia, and Akali all play awfully when they're in, a situation that's behind the curve. And I think Riven, especially, I've never been super convinced about Riven jungle in competitive. I just think it's too high risk, too high risk reward essentially, and the reward isn't even that much of a payoff compared to what other junglers could provide you anyway. So I think it's an interesting one where we are right now, and I just think that ViV, unfortunately, even off the back of a single mistake like that, they're staring down a situation where they might not be able to recoup. That was just insane. I was about to start talking about it, but it just happened before it was done. And that is just a quick takedown of Miloop. The spooky ghosts were used, so that indicates to me that they do have the ability to reveal targets, which is why Zara has picked this up.
Yeah, it's very, very clever, to be fair, if it can reveal targets. And again, look, they're just going to catch up ViV off guard. Unfortunately, the can't remember the name of Leona's third ability. It's completely lost their head. Anyway, Leona's Zenith Blade, that's the one. I knew I was going to try and get it eventually. But yeah, Zenith Blade's unfortunately missed there. But ViV are they're just slow, really, to be honest with you. And formulation,
they're falling apart right now. They picked ultra high risk reward champions like Vayne, Irelia, Akali, and Riven. They're all very high risk reward champions, and they picked them. And they have no backup plan when they get behind. And right now they're behind. They take out the first kill here. Kimau by himself does get locked up. That's a good start for ViV off this fight, but they have got to chase away the rest of Formulation Gaming. That was a attempted buying time move from the Riven there, from Tyrus, to allow his team a bit more chance to get away. Why you don't want this fight, guys? You don't just accept that you got the dragon and you got out right there. You do not want this fight. If you have to give it mid lane tier 1, you have to give it mid lane tier 1 in this scenario. You're all such low HP. This is so risky. You can see the exhaust comes through. There is the ultimate. We're just waiting for Don to go in. Don goes in. He's going to try and find Kranix, and he gets it. This was such a mistake to stay around the tier 1, and they got punished for it as well. Formulation Gaming rightly put their foot down with ViV honestly taking the mickey around that mid lane tier 1.
I feel like they're just disrespecting Formulation, really, to be honest with you. I mean, the initial engage here was a little bit of an overextension, really, by UI and Kimau, because the rest of the team was not really there to follow up. But to be honest, they just did enough damage. Don was able to kill Tyrus here. He wasn't able to do anything. You can see the poke damage from both Ziggs and Jace. You know, ViV tried to do this in game number 1, and it didn't really work out for them. It seems to be working wonders here. But yeah, like you said, you know, during this play, ViV just have to back off here. Look how low they all are. They're just taking poke damage after poke damage. Zawa still 4 HP. Don's still 4 HP. You can see how much damage he's able to do. The exhaust comes down. The ultimate comes down from Zawa as well. The engage. And when you're full health, when you're Don and Zawa, you're full health, you're like, okay, I'll take the 1 HP Vayne and Irelia that's in my face, and I'll just take 3 kills. And that's basically what it was in the end. It was 3 kills. They didn't take the mid lane tower, but it kills the kill at the end of the game. There's going to be more gold now going over to Formulation. And to be honest, even though they're down by 2 dragons, you know, Formulation, 2 towers, are at about 7,000 gold lead already, 11 minutes in the game. And it's still going to take a long time for Akali and Vayne to come online, really.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, Vayne just picked up her Storm Razor, and it might look like she's heading towards a good spot in the game, but she's yet to even upgrade her boots and buy boots enchant. So, you know, great that the Storm Razor's there, but still need a bit of time before Vayne really comes online in this game. And actually, movement speed is important to Vayne in teamfight situations, so the boots are a relatively important upgrade for Vayne overall. You also got to look at the fact there is basically, or there was previously, a nearly 2,000 gold lead for Kimau in the jungle on this Xin Zhao, very far ahead of his opposite number, who's working towards a Divine Sunderer Riven, I believe, at this point in time, which is something that a lot of Riven players have started to open up. It's another build that I think works quite nicely. Like, Riven does use a lot of abilities. She's an ability caster, so therefore the Sheen passive makes sense, but never wanted things like the attack speed that you got from the Trinity Force. So that's why Divine Sunderer is a really nice little addition to Riven's build.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, being able to be that little bit extra tankiness as well, but
there's an engage coming through. It's a great counter engage from Zawa, and the rest of Formulation Gaming are just chasing them down. They get the knock up on to ViV, and that's going to be an attempted takeout by Miloop, who just gets obliterated on the back line. Don is just too far ahead, and we're looking at an inhibitor tower for sure here. 4 kills for 1 on the side of Formulation, with a massive team advantage around the inhibitor tower. They could potentially look to end the game here with a charge from the Rift Herald as well. We've got 10 seconds until this is up. They're going to go for it. This is Rift Herald to end the game and get it to Barcelona. Formulation Gaming knock out ViV, and they will book their place at the live finals of the WREC.
Game 1 and Game 3, was just one team fight for Formulation. That game ended in just over 12 minutes. That has to be one of the quickest games I think I've seen in Wild Rift. It's absolutely mental. And it just shows one little mistake, and I don't think it was just one real mistake here by ViV. I think it was multiple mistakes throughout the entirety of this third game. But one little mistake in Wild Rift, with the Rift Herald up with Zig's satchel charge as well, with how much damage Jace can do to towers with his second ability as well. And wow, Formulation, honestly, shocked all of us. Completely shocked all of us, I think, because we were expecting ViV to come into this. I think they had a really, really strong performance throughout the whole of the WREC in the main tournament. But Formulation here just showing that they're people to deal with. They're people to deal with as well. They don't want to be talked down, I guess you can say, in a way, but we definitely won't be talking them down now, because we'll be able to see them in Barcelona, and they're going to be playing off against RICS next week to see who will lock in that main stage, the main tournament bracket, or if they're going to be playing in the play-in. So RICS against Formulation is going to be a very exciting game now, and this was it. This was the last team fight. This game was so quick, and it just turned into just complete disaster, really, for ViV.
Yeah, I think realistically, ViV, I mean, the comp was just bad. It was just really bad. Like, I don't usually like to say things that are so outright and so definitive, but that comp was just bad. Like, you have Akali, Riven, Irelia, and Vayne. Like, they are really high risk, really high reward champions that you haven't given yourself any breathing room for if things go wrong in the middle of a competitive game. You're going up against a super strong early game of Olaf Zinja, which proved to be massive. You have the early game of Leona. And all of this team sucks versus CC, and there's plenty of CC on the side of Formulation. So it's sort of like not ideal, in my opinion, for ViV to try and take this kind of risky draft in the final game of the series. I get that the Irelia was a sort of a deny, but it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, the denial rate from Irelia was, I think, fine, but I think if you put Millip on Irelia again, I think that's fine. I think putting Sharks on Irelia, I haven't really seen Sharks play too much Irelia, but he didn't really have a real fun time against Don in the mid lane, who absolutely destroyed Sharks in the mid lane. And instead you pick Akali in the Baron lane, which can be very, very risky because you don't have that early game pressure, and UI was able to dominate in the Baron lane as well. And then you pick a losing duo lane with the Vayne Lulu. I think the Vayne Lulu still kind of makes sense because you want Kranix on that AD carry. But in my opinion, I don't think Vayne is as strong as what she used to be, because Solari Chargeblade is now kind of out of the AD carry kind of pool. I think she's still strong overall because, you know, these tanky bruisers are still in the meta that like to build Divine Sundra. But I just feel like it takes longer for Vayne to come online now, because before you had the extra 50% crit, you had the extra damage from Solari Chargeblade. You don't really get that now. So you kind of need really 3 or 4 items with Vayne for her to really come online. You know, the Blader King, the Stormraiser, the Phantom Dancer. Even then, you only have 50% crit on Vayne. So it's a bit of a struggle for ViV Esports. They're going to look to try and bounce back in the lower bracket. But Formulation, they booked their tickets to Barcelona in pretty amazing fashion.
Yeah, they really did. You know what, guys? Let's take a look back at the key moment from that last game of the series here. The play of the game for Formulation. I think there were lots of good moments. I'm trying to think which one the best one was. It looks like it's that final fight. That was a massive Leona ultimate there, Stu. That was a 4-man Leona ultimate. Absolutely nutty engage, and then obviously the attempted Miloop engage just got absolutely blasted at the end of the game. Dropped the Rift Herald from Kimau, and that was game ending. Beautiful play, beautiful setup, beautiful ending, and that's one thing that Formulation have shown they're very good at. They see a chance, they take it, and then they capitalize on it, which is something that really good teams are capable of.
We saw that in the first game. We also saw it in this third game as well. When ViV kind of overextend a little bit, or when a team makes mistakes, Formulation just engage. You can see all of ViV were just grouped up together. Perfect for Ziggs ultimate, perfect for Leona ultimate. Kamau was able to knock everyone away as well. And just a beautiful, beautiful team fight by Formulation. And that was it for them. They were able to just finish the game just like that in 12.5 minutes.
And I think both games that they won, they were dominant. It felt like ViV took what worked in game 2 and just said, nah, just do something completely different in game 3. But hey, look, they've got more chances. The bracket isn't over. plenty of games left for ViV to try and find their way to Barcelona. In the meantime, we've got an interview ready with Don from Formulation Gaming, so we're going to hand it over to Hells to chat through his win and the team's success in getting to Barcelona.
Here we are again. I told you, Don, right? Like, hopefully I'll speak to you again after your next series, and here we are. So I want to ask you first. You've qualified to Barcelona already with this win.
Yes.
How are you and the team feeling after this intense series?
Well, we're like super happy. Yeah, we're actually super excited.
Yeah, of course.
Like the last moment when we destroyed LMNX, we were like, oh my god, let's go, what the fuck, so good, bro. It's like this, you know? Yeah, and it was pretty good performance. The second game, I don't know, it kind of went wrong because we lack of damage and the early game skirmishes didn't go well, and yeah, it turned out like a loss. But overall, we just came back, we just said, okay guys, like mental reset, just focus. Everything is fine. Like we know what ViV wants to play. Like they want to play Vayne. They wanted to play Ahri because apparently Sharks likes Ahri because of mobility, you know, wave clear, and it's just comfort pick. So we just deny enemy mid laner his comfort. Vayne we doesn't care because we focused more on the early game. You know, if we snowball early game, okay, Vayne is kind of useless. So we just followed our plan, and yeah, we succeed.
Yeah, definitely. You guys did lose the second game, as you mentioned, but the third game seemed like a very easy victory. I believe you guys won in like 13 minutes or something. So you beat ViV, which is an incredibly strong team, and it seems pretty easy for you, even though it was a 2 versus 1. You're up against WREC in your next match, however. And of course, I have to ask you, how are you feeling matching up against WREC? Because we saw WREC, right? They were insanely strong, especially in the new meta. So how are you feeling matching up against WREC in the next series?
I'm feeling pretty confident because like over all of the teams like in Europe, I prefer WREC like overall because their play style is kind of similar to us, and also the players of WREC are pretty good. So I like to face them and play against them. And I can tell you some insights like from the scrims, but be ready for the really good match. It's gonna be banger in my opinion. But it doesn't matter like who wins because we're still gonna go to Barcelona anyways.
Yeah, that's right. Talking about Barcelona, you know, I just want to give you a massive congratulations. I'm looking forward to meeting you all, and hopefully you guys will perform on stage just as well as you performed in today's series. So thank you very much, and yeah, I guess I could speak you after the WREC series again if you win.
Yeah, sure. I hope so. Peace. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Bye-bye.
So that's it. Back to the casters.
Thank you very much, Don. Feeling confident, feeling good after that win. Nice to see him so pumped. You don't usually get to see Don with too much emotion there, but nice to see him so pumped at the end of that. And I think deserved winners. Honestly, I think they played. I think they played better. They drafted better, especially drafted better. And I think you know, I'm really glad to see Formulation live up to their potential because there's a lot of potential on that team. Let's take a look at the MVP then from this series, the all-important MVP. And we actually had a lot of discussion about this behind the scenes. There was a lot of back and forth about who kind of stood out to us as the MVP. But for me, and I think for a lot of us, Kimau in the jungle, despite having not the most amazing KDA, the influence that he had in engaging these fights and just dominating from the early game really felt like, especially this right here, you could see driving the win for Formulation Gaming.
Yeah, I think in game 1 and game 3, he was so dominant on his Xin Zhao. Kind of a new pick that's come into the meta with all the buffs, but it just shows that Kamau could just do amazing things when he's just on the forefront. He's just on the front. He's just engaging. He loves to be that champion, that sort of player that loves to go in with the likes of Zaura and Don as well. And I think that's just kind of what we said with Formulation overall. If they're on the front foot, if they have the advantages, they're able to just engage, go in, and just completely dominate. And that's what they did against ViV. And I think that next matchup, Formulation against WREC, is going to be, as he said, a very exciting series.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it, but of course we've got more matches to get through before we get to that stage of the tournament. Hells, my man, how are you? And that was a great series, right? I think we all expected ViV to win, but Formulation, they proved us wrong.
I mean, I even said easy win. Right? I got proved wrong. Formulation Gaming just took the series, and honestly, it kind of felt easy for Formulation Gaming. Besides that second game, like the third game, they just absolutely giga stomped ViV.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I need to have words with whoever drafted that ViV composition. But I won't get hung up on that, guys. Let's take a look at the bracket to see where we are at the end of today. Today, it was a long, awesome day of Wild Rift. We've got plenty more days this week to go. RICS versus Formulation in the winners bracket final. Both teams are secured for Barcelona, so they'll be happy. And as Stu said, the winner of that will decide who goes to the main stage and who potentially has to go to the play-ins. But regardless, it's going to be a really banger series, and I'm looking forward to the series that we have tomorrow, which will be, I think, ViV versus Team Dark and Queso versus Control. I think, there is some difficult to call. I mean, I'm leaning towards ViV and Team Queso, but Team Dark can definitely upset, and Control definitely have their moments too, right, Stu?
Yeah, I think Team Dark, I think we kind of see them as, we call them like the flip team, really. It's like, what side of Team Dark are we going to see on the day? Because they've taken down strong teams before, but they've also lost to kind of lesser known teams as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what side of Team Dark we're going to see tomorrow. But yeah, I'm the same with you. I think Team Queso against RIV, and that's going to be a really interesting one as well, because Team Queso versus ViV, that could potentially secure the 3rd spot in Barcelona. That's amazing if we get that matchup.
I'm super excited for that. Hells, it's been great as well. I really love casting with you earlier today. Stu, we had a great series also. But that is it from us today here on the WREC Last Chance Qualifiers. We have got 3 more days of action, I believe, coming your way this week before we gear up for those all-important live finals later on in the year, which is not actually in the year. It's like a month away. But regardless, we're going to be getting there soon. It's going to be awesome. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more action here on the WREC.